Hey everyone, it's me Bailey and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm here to kind of do two videos in one for you guys. So I'm going to do my October wrap up as well as my November TBR. I haven't done one of these videos in a while, so bear with me on this one. Just to kind of give you guys a little bit more of an accurate synopsis of the books that I'm going to be talking about. I am going to be reading the synopsis that is on Goodreads. I am going to attempt, I guess, to not make it sound boring, I guess, and I'm hopefully not going to drown on too long when it comes to that, but I feel like in order to give you guys the best experience when talking about these books, it's best that I just read the synopsis and then give my thoughts on the ones that I've read. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start with my wrap up, and then I will talk to you guys about my November TBR at the end. So in the month of October, I did end up reading 11 books. It was a very ebook heavy month for me. And when I say that, it basically meant that all of the ebooks were in the same series. So I'm going to be talking about those a little bit right now. So the first book that I ended up reading was Awakened by Brenda K. Davies. And this is about Sarah, and traumatized from her past, she was struggling to move on from it. She spent the past 3 years of college hiding herself from the world and content to stay that way. A chance encounter with Liam shatters her sheltered world, leaving her stunned and shaken by the strange feelings and emotion he arises in her. Feelings that she's never thought she would experience and that frighten her in their intensity. Harboring a dark and deadly secret of his own, Liam knows that he should stay away from Sarah, that he will only bring her more hurt, but he is irresistibly drawn to her and unable to deny himself the pleasure that only she can bring to him. But when their past collide with their present and Liam's true nature is revealed, will their love for each other be enough, or will they be torn apart forever? So this is basically starts as like a college romance, and then eventually, now it's not a college romance anymore, but you know. So I ended up not giving this one a rating because I have read this one, I think, 3 or 4 times in the past, so I didn't feel right rating it, but I did enjoy it. It did take me about 6 months to read it just because I was kind of in a slump when I started it, and I thought it could help me get out of the slump, but then it didn't. So but yeah, so that one did not get a rating for this month. After Awakened, I read Destined, also by Brenda K. Davies, and this is the second book in the series, and this one follows Isabel, which is Liam and Sarah's second born. And so this says, terrified of becoming mated like her parents, Isabel has locked herself away in order to avoid their fate. She is content to stay sheltered amongst her family, hidden away as she lives out her days away from the human race and the world. Despite her determination to remain alone, her world is rocked when a person from her parents' past arrives at their door, bringing with them the powerful and stunning vampire Stefan. Though Stefan is not expecting to arrive at a nest full of vampires, he is immediately drawn to the vibrant, often defiant, and willful Isabel. To his surprise, Isabel does everything in her power to avoid him and her desire for him. No matter how hard she tries to fight it, though, Isabel begins to realize that trying to deny her destiny may just destroy them both, as there are some things that cannot be stopped. Just as she begins to let her guard down, Stefan's dark and deadly past catches up to him and threatens to destroy them both. So, like I said again, this is a vampire romance, and this follows Liam and Sarah's second born, who's Isabel, and she meets Stefan, and then they fall in love, but she like tries to deny it because she doesn't want to be mated, because she's like scared of it, and it's just like, it's a whole thing. I ended up rating this one 3 stars. I really liked Stefan, and Isabel was fine, but like, you know, the story was just, it was good, but it wasn't fantastic. The next book that I read in the month of October was A Court of Wings and Ruin. This is the 3rd book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, and I want to read the synopsis of this, but I feel like it's kind of spoilery, so I'm basically just going to kind of give you guys like a rundown of the book without kind of spoiling it, or trying not to spoil it anyways. But basically, Farah is in the spring court, and she is trying to gather information because there is a war brewing and she is trying to do everything that she can in order to save the ones that she loves and protect her family. And yeah, that's really all I can really say about it without kind of spoiling it, but there is a war that goes on in this, and yeah, basically Farrah's just trying to protect the people that she loves. So I can't really give the synopsis of this without spoiling the other two, especially since this is the last one in the series. But yeah, so you guys hopefully kind of get the gist of what this one's about. After Corner Brings in Ruin, I read Untamed, also by Brenda K. Davies, and this is about Ethan, and Ethan is on vacation visiting Stefan and Isabel in Bermuda. And he goes to this bar and he meets Emma, and it's an instant connection, and their mating bond that, like, Ethan doesn't realize quite yet that they're mates, but then they end up being mates. And his entire life Ethan has been keeping his more violent urges a secret from his family. They all think he's just antisocial. What they don't know is that every day he struggles not to give in to his growing desire to kill. Looking to escape for just a little bit and hoping that a change of scenery will help him, he agrees to join Isabel and Stefan in Bermuda. What he doesn't expect is for Emma to walk into his life and change it in ways that he never anticipated. Just when he finally begins to find some peace in his life, a dangerous threat from Emma's past arrives. Ethan is willing to do anything to keep Emma safe, even if it means giving in to brutality that he spent his entire life fighting against. Giving in a little, though, may mean giving in forever if he is unable to bring himself back from the darkness that has always enticed him. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Their story was good. The fight scenes at the end of her books, like at the end of Brenda K. Davies' books, are always just so good. And I feel like that's usually what bumps it up for me from like a 2 to a 3 star, because the fight scenes are just so good. Because I feel like the writing is fine, but the story is just so kind of predictable, because in all the books it's like the same storyline. They meet, fall in love, someone from their past comes in, and then they like live happily ever after, and it's just like, it's the same. But I just can't stop reading it. I can't stop. I keep reading them because I want to know what happens, even though I know what happens. The next book that I read in the month of October was Hidden Boddies by Carolyn Kepnes, and I listened to this via audiobook. It was pretty okay for the most part. Most of you guys know the show You is based off of the first novel by Carolyn Kepnes as well, and this follows Joe, and he is very creepy, and he is a stalker. And the second book is a continuation of the first book after the events in You, and basically Joe is in California, and he just is trying to find this woman, but he can't find her, and it's just like a whole thing. And then he finds love, and then he starts dating her, and then it's just, I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Honestly, I felt like it was kind of a waste. Like, I feel like we didn't really need this book. I feel like it could have ended where it ended in You, but I did end up giving it 3.5 stars. I did hate the way that it ended. I felt like there wasn't any closure in the ending, and it just kind of ended, which I did not like. And in all honesty, I feel like I could have rated it lower, but it's done now. I might end up going back and changing my rating later, but yeah, it just wasn't my favorite. Didn't love it. The next book I ended up reading in October was Enraptured by Brenda K. Davies, and this follows Ian. Ian is in his last semester of college, and Paige is a human who is being looked after by hunters, and something happens and Paige is attacked, and so Ian ends up saving her outside of a nightclub, and then they go to this cabin and they're just trying to keep her safe from this like vampire who attacked her. And it's just like this whole thing, and it's very similar to the other ones. They meet, fall in love, yada yada. And so I did not end up rating this one either. I kind of at this point decided that I was going to stop rating her books because I'd already read most of them. I was trying to get to some of the later books that I haven't read yet. So any of the ones that I have read so far, I don't think I rated. However, I did think that I rated one of the later ones that I am going to talk about because I just like didn't love it. So I ended up giving it 2 stars, but this one I ended up not rating, and like I said, I just need more, even though I know what happens, because now as I get into some of the later books, they start to kind of a storyline instead of them being more like standalones. It's more of like a storyline where you like need to read the next one, if that makes sense. But yeah, so no rating for that one. Next, I read Undone by Brenda K. Davies, and this is the 5th book in the Vampire Awakening series, and this one follows Abby and Brian. And Abby is one of Sarah and Liam's kids, and then Brian is a friend of Stefan, who was in the 2nd book, and we actually meet Brian in the 2nd book, and he makes an appearance in some of the other books as well, and we just kind of see his relationship with Abby blossom. But they had actually met in that 2nd book, Abby and Brian did, but this book takes place 5 years later because Abby was 15 in that book and now she's like 21. And so she meets Brian again when her sister Vicky goes missing, and so she enlists Brian's help to try and find her sister, even though her sister is known for like partying and stuff like that, so she doesn't want to bring her family into it just yet. So she asks Brian for help and he comes. They end up being mates. Abby already knew because she like felt it, but Brian didn't because he was however many hundreds of years old. And since Abby was only 15, he wasn't going to be attracted to her because that would have been like, that would have been not it. But so now they go and end up finding Vicky, and yeah, I ended up giving this one, I didn't rate this one either. So next we have Fractured by Brenda K. Davies, and this follows David and Mia, and David is one of the Stooges who was one of Liam's friends from the 1st book. And it follows him, and it follows David and his mate Mia, who was with Vicky when they found her, and so David had to save her as well. This is a novella, I guess, but I really did not like this one. I gave it 2 stars. I just wasn't a huge fan because I felt like David was kind of controlling, and it was just like I didn't really love it. Then after that we have Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco, and this follows Audrey Rose and Thomas, and this follows the events after finding out who Jack the Ripper is and stalking Jack the Ripper, and Audrey Rose is trying to cope with the events that happened, and the loss of a few family members and things like that. And so she is going to Romania for the best school of medicine that's in Europe so she can study to be a mortician, I guess. And so she is trying to learn basically how to examine the dead and things like that. So this follows her and Thomas as they embark on that journey, and while they're at the school, these murders start happening, and there's rumors that it's Dracula. And so Audrey Rose and Thomas try to figure out who Dracula is and how to stop them and stop the murders from happening. I listened to this via audiobook, and I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. It was a lot better than Stalking Jack the Ripper. I found it less predictable, and I really enjoyed the story. However, I don't see myself continuing with the series for the time being. However, maybe I will pick it up in the future, but as of right now, I think my journey with Audrey Rose and Thomas ends here. The next book that I ended up reading in October was The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, and this is about a young girl in Harlem discovers slam poetry as a way to understand her mother's religion and her own relationship with the world. Xiomara Batista feels unheard and unable to hide in her Harlem neighborhood. Ever since her body grew in a curve, she has learned to let her fists and her fierceness do the talking. But Xiomara has plenty she wants to say, and she pours all her frustration and passion into the pages of a leather notebook, reciting the words to herself like prayers, especially after she catches feelings for a boy in her bio class named Amen, who her family can never know about. With Mommy's determination to force her daughter to obey the laws of the church, Xiomara understands that thoughts are the best kept to herself, so when she is invited to join her school slam poetry club, she doesn't know how she could ever attend without her mommy finding out, much less speak her words out loud. But still, she can't stop thinking about performing her poems because in the face of a world that may not want to hear her, Xiomara refuses to be silent. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I listened to the audiobook. I absolutely loved it. I listened to it in one sitting. It was so good. Honestly, it was so good. Like, that's really all I can say. It was phenomenal. And the last book that I read in the month of October was Eternally Bound by Brenda K. Davies, and this is the first book in the Alliance series, and this follows like a whole new set of characters, but there are people from the Vampire Awakenings series that make appearances, and so this first book is about Ronan, and he is the oldest purebred vampire in existence, and he meets his mate Cadence, who happens to be a hunter, and she sneaks out of the hunter compound because in the hunters, women are not allowed to leave the compound because women have to have children, and children are so rare among hunters. So they try to protect their women at all costs, and Cadence does not like that, and so she sneaks out of the hunter compound one night to find the vampire that killed her father, and it leads her to Ronan, and Ronan ends up saving her life in an alley behind the club, and so he ends up taking her to the vampire compound, and just kind of their story kind of unfolds from there. And there's this like instant attraction like there is in all the other books, and it's just their mates, and so yeah, they meet, fall in love, all the things. And I actually didn't give this one a rating either. Surprise, surprise. Okay, so that's all the books that I read in the month of October, and I know for that I kind of gave like half of it was like reading the synopsis and half of it was like me giving my like own synopsis. So let me know in the comments which one you like better, if you like me reading it better, if you like my just own kind of synopsis. But yeah, so that's gonna be it for the wrap up portion. Next I'm going to talk about my TBR for November. So there are 3 books that I want to talk about that I want to read in November, and the first one should be to nobody's surprise, but it is The Wicked King by Holly Black. I'm hoping to finish this, where I'm currently on page 63. I've literally been reading this since like August or something. I just haven't really had time to like actually pick up a book and like read it physically. I'm hoping that I'll be able to pick this one up soon. I have just been really busy with homework and stuff like that, but the semester is getting ready to be over. I have like 2 weeks left, so then I should be able to be reading and stuff. But yeah, I would like to get this one read this month. This is the second book in the Cruel Prince series. Honestly, like I know what this is about, but like I don't. Like I know it's about Jude and Carden and like all the events that happen after the Cruel Prince, but yeah, I don't know. I know, yeah, I don't really know. I'll read the back to you guys. Jude has bound the Wicked King, Carden, to her and made herself the power behind the throne. Navigating the constantly shifting political alliances of the Faerie would be difficult enough if Carden were biddable, but he does everything in his power to humiliate and undermine her. When it becomes all too clear that someone close to Jude means to betray her, Jude must uncover the traitor and fight her own complicated feelings for Carden to maintain control as a mortal in a fairy world. But yeah, so I'm like on chapter 7 and I like it so far. Yeah, I would like to finish this one in November. Okay, and so the next 2 are in a series, and it's the first and the second book, and I'm only gonna hold up one book because it's a combined book, which I absolutely hate. But yeah, so that's going to be Obsidian and Onyx by Jennifer Armentrout, and those are the first 2 books in the Lux series. And this follows Katie, I believe. Is her name Katie? Okay, so apparently Jennifer Armentrout doesn't write the name of her characters. Yes, Katie. Okay, and this follows Katie, who has a book blog, and her mother move to West Virginia, maybe, or something, and she meets Damon, who has this like secret, and he's like very just beautiful, and he's arrogant, and at first she just like doesn't like him. This is a very enemies to lovers type story. Yeah, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I'm gonna just read the back to you guys because there's an alien next door, and with his looming height and eerie green eyes, he's hot until he opens his mouth. He's infuriating, arrogant, stab-worthy, but when a stranger attacks me and Damon literally freezes time with the wave of his hand, he marks me. Turns out he has a galaxy of enemies wanting to steal his abilities, and the only way I'm getting out of this alive is by sticking close to him until the alien mojo fades. If I don't kill him first, that is. So yeah, that's what this is about. And so yeah, I want to read this and then the one after it. Y'all, I know this video is probably a hot mess, but like I said, I haven't done one of these in a while, so guys, just bear with me. I promise I'll get better. Maybe. But yeah, so that is going to be all for this video. That was my October wrap up and my November TBR. I hope you guys like this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up if you would like, and subscribe to my channel if you want, but you don't have to. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!